South Africa doesn't own its reserve bank.
They run the South African Reserve Bank from Basel, Switzerland. That's the head office from which the South African Reserve Bank is run as a company.
Yes, you heard that right. The institution that creates money and controls inflation is in the hands of private shareholders, some of whom are not even South African. Let's break it down. The South African Reserve Bank is not a government entity. It operates independently, and more importantly, it's privately owned. Over 800 shareholders, many of whom remain shrouded in secrecy, hold stakes in this critical institution. A small percentage of these shareholders are foreign. Yes, foreign. And they earn dividends from the very system that determines the value of our money. Here's the kicker. While the Reserve Bank's decisions directly impact the economy and our lives, the South African government does not fully control it. It's an institution designed to regulate monetary policy, but its private ownership raises serious questions about accountability and sovereignty. Let's break it down further.
Under the Reserve Bank, actually, talk a bit more about closing down the Reserve Bank. How will that actually work?
That's very important. Thanks, everyone, for bringing me back to this, because I can go on a tangent. Remember that the Reserve Bank is a private company. Once again, just like Eskom, it's a private corporation that does not belong to the government. It belongs to a bunch of private owners that we'll never know their names. And they run the South African Reserve Bank from Basel, Switzerland. That's the head office from which the South African Reserve Bank is run as a company. And our government borrows money. It allows this private company to create money for South Africa. It's insane. It's insanity. It's like saying Edgar's or Anglo-American should now suddenly take over and have the exclusive right to create money for our people, for our country. So the government is the intermediary that then treats the South African population as the slaves that have to borrow money from the central bank and through all their private banks, the Standard Bank, Nedbank, Absa, all these banks, private corporations. Their main objective is to create profit, not to help the people or to help the country. So, once you know this, you realize that the Reserve Bank is the highest authority in the country. They control the government. The government does not control the Reserve Bank. This is a huge shift that people need to make in their minds. The moment you replace the Reserve Bank with a People's Bank, that's not the solution, but it's the first very important step to take the lid off the pressure cooker and to release the stress and the anxiety and the misery from millions of South Africans. There is the People's Bank. We can create our own money. Thank you very much, Reserve Bank. Shut you down. Go back to Switzerland. We can create our own money as the people of South Africa.
And be happy and be free from all these borrowing and loans and giving back with interest rates as well.
This is the key thing. If we have a People's Bank and we issue our own money, there's no inflation, no taxes, no fees, no levies, nothing. Why? Because we create the money and we don't have to pay ourselves back any interest. We're not a corporation. The Reserve Bank is.
This is not just about semantics. It's about power, who holds it, and whose interests they serve. Did you know that only 6% of South Africa's money supply exists as physical cash? The other 94% is created digitally through credit by private banks. These banks, like Absa, Nedbank, and Standard Bank, don't just hold your money. They create it through loans. The more they lend, the more money enters the system. But this money comes at a price. Debt. Who benefits? Not you, not me. The private banking sector thrives on the interest we pay back on these loans, and the Reserve Bank ensures that this system of profit continues uninterrupted.
This just blew my mind. When you think of the South African Reserve Bank, you think it's South African, right? Nope. The South African Reserve Bank is actually privately owned. It is managed by 14 directors, 7 of whom are appointed by the President of South Africa. If you don't understand the significance of this, money talks, and they are pretty much the highest you go when it comes to money in South Africa. Apparently most of the shareholders are not South African.
The South African Reserve Bank has just over 800 shareholders.
I couldn't find information on the breakdown of the shareholding, so if anyone has this, please let me know.
How is this possible? How does a country allow its central bank to be in private hands while claiming economic independence? Julius Malema and the EMF have made their position clear. The Reserve Bank must be nationalized. But what does that mean? Does it mean stealing from private shareholders or dismantling the financial system? Let's hear directly from Malema himself.
The ownership of the Reserve Bank by the state is just an affirmation of our sovereignty, because main majority of the reserved banks in the world are owned by the state, and we cannot have our own Reserve Bank owned by individuals. So that's all we say. And with nationalization, It doesn't mean we're going to take a big construction company and make it a state construction company. No. With nationalization, we mean establishment of a state housing construction company, state road construction company, and there could be private-owned construction companies, but the state must have its own internal capacity to do its own things. And that's what we say. When we say we're going to nationalize the mines, it doesn't mean we're going to take Anglo-American mine. It doesn't mean we're going to take Impala Platinum mine. It simply means the state must own a mining company that will be given preference, especially on profitable minerals. The same goes with the banks. We're saying we establish a state-owned bank. That's what nationalization of the EFF means. Because nationalization simply means state ownership. And we are going to establish our own bank, and then the rest of other banks must compete. This is not a threat to the banks. Look at private schools. The private schools are there and public schools are there. The establishment of public schools did not lead to the closure of private schools. The establishment of state-owned hospitals never led to the closure of private hospitals. If anything, the private hospitals are thriving more than the state-owned hospitals. So why, when it comes to the banking sector or insurance sector or the financial sector, people say, no, you can't interfere there. But everywhere.
Malema isn't calling for chaos, he's calling for balance. A state-owned reserve bank wouldn't abolish private banks, but would ensure that public